The Barclays Center in Brooklyn isn't some small-time venue having an off night. This is one of the premier event spaces in New York, home to the Nets, major concerts, and championship boxing matches. So, when images started circulating of the arena looking like an abandoned mall during what was supposed to be a major celebrity event, people had questions. Angel Reese was the headliner. Serena Williams was scheduled to appear. They were charging $250 per ticket, and according to multiple attendees, fewer than 15 people showed up to some sessions. This wasn't just an event that underperformed. This was a complete catastrophe that exposes something much bigger about the gap between online popularity and actual influence. Barbie Dreamfest wasn't thrown together by some amateur promoter trying to make a quick buck. Mattel, one of the largest toy companies on the planet, was directly involved. The sponsor list included Michael's craft stores, cookie brands, yoga mat companies, and multiple corporate partners who put real money behind this thing. Marketing teams created promotional materials. The Barclays Center blocked off significant space. Someone at Mattel headquarters looked at the proposal and said yes. This had every ingredient for success. Corporate backing, a major venue, celebrity names, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a video. Months of advanced planning. Yet when the doors opened, the halls were essentially empty. That kind of failure doesn't happen by accident. It happens when there's a fundamental miscalculation about whether people actually care enough to show up. The promotional push was everywhere on social media. Posts about the event got thousands of likes and comments. Angel Reese's supporters, the self-proclaimed Reese's Pieces, were vocal about their excitement. Hashtags trended. The online buzz suggested this would be packed. But here's what actually happened. People paid $300 for 3-day passes, booked hotel rooms in Fort Lauderdale, arranged travel, and when they walked through the doors, they could tour the entire exhibit hall in under 10 minutes. One attendee described asking a staff member if that was really everything. The staff member looked disappointed and said, "Yeah, we've gotten that question a lot. The swag bag that was supposed to make the ticket price worthwhile? A single packet of hand sanitizer with a Barbie logo." The marketplace had 10 vendors total, and only 4 were selling anything related to Barbie. But the rest were random jewelry stands and craft booths you'd find at any generic convention. This wasn't the first warning sign that something was off. A few months earlier, LSU hosted an exhibition game against the Brazilian national team during homecoming weekend. Angel Reese returned to the campus where she won a national championship just 18 months prior. The Pete Maravich Assembly Center holds 13,000 people. Attendance was approximately 6,000. Less than half capacity for a homecoming game featuring a recent championship hero. Around the same time, the Indiana Fever played a similar exhibition against Brazil. That game, featuring Caitlin Clark, sold out a 16,000-seat arena. When Reese's signature shoe was released, headlines screamed about it selling out immediately. Sounds impressive until you learn that retailers were only stocking 10 pairs per location. Creating artificial scarcity isn't the same as overwhelming demand. It's a marketing tactic that makes something look more popular than it actually is. Social media metrics can be deceiving. You can have millions of followers and still struggle to get people through a door. But the gap we're talking about here isn't a modest shortfall or a case of slightly overestimating interest. This is the difference between expecting thousands and getting dozens. Angel Reese has millions of followers across platforms. Her fans dominate comment sections, defend her relentlessly, and create viral moments constantly. They'll argue with strangers for hours about her impact and importance. Yet when an event charges actual money and requires people to leave their houses, the response evaporates. That tells you something crucial about the nature of that online support. Because it's one thing to type a supportive comment or share a post. It's another thing entirely to spend hundreds of dollars and travel to show up in person. Real influence means the ability to drive behavior, to convert attention into action. What happened at Barbie Dreamfest suggests that conversion isn't happening. The attendee experience was somehow even worse than just low turnout. People described the event as feeling like a scam from the moment they arrived. Getting to the convention center was chaotic, with no clear signage and conflicting directions from staff and GPS. Once inside, there were 5 or 6 different ballrooms, but no signs indicating where specific programming was happening. The schedule posted online wasn't accurate. Events got canceled or moved without notification. One woman described the moment she realized she'd been ripped off. She walked around the entire exhibit space, looked at the handful of vendor booths, checked the sparse programming schedule, and felt her stomach drop. She'd spent close to $1,000 between tickets and accommodation for what amounted to less entertainment value than a trip to Target. When she went to guest services hoping there was more she'd somehow missed, the staff confirmed her worst fear. That was it. That was everything. For an event backed by a company like Mattel, the execution was shockingly amateur. The Serena Williams situation adds another layer of mystery to this disaster. She was prominently featured in promotional materials as someone who would be appearing. But according to multiple sources, she didn't show up. Now, we don't have official confirmation about exactly what happened there. Maybe her team did their homework and realized the event was poorly organized. Maybe she saw the early attendance numbers and decided it wasn't worth the association. Maybe there was a legitimate scheduling conflict. But it's telling that the biggest actual celebrity attached to this event seems to have avoided the wreckage. When someone with Serena's level of genuine star power distances themselves, that's usually a sign that something's wrong. She's appeared at countless events over her career. She knows what a professional operation looks like. And whatever she saw here apparently didn't meet that standard. Here's the uncomfortable business reality that a lot of people don't want to acknowledge. Corporate sponsors aren't making decisions based on fairness or giving everyone an equal shot. They're looking at return on investment. When a company spends money on a partnership or sponsorship, they want to reach real customers who will actually buy their products. Empty venues and failed events send a clear message. The audience might not be as large or engaged as the social media numbers suggested. You can inflate follower counts. You can use coordinated campaigns to trend hashtags and dominate online conversations. You can create the appearance of massive popularity through strategic posting and supportive networks. But you cannot fake a packed arena. You cannot manufacture people physically showing up and opening their wallets. That's the ultimate test of genuine support, and it's the metric that corporate decision-makers ultimately care about most. The comparison to Caitlin Clark keeps coming up, and it's not going away because the gap in actual drawing power is massive and measurable. This isn't about subjective preferences or playing styles or personalities. It's about who can fill arenas, drive television ratings, and make events successful. When Clark plays, venues sell out. When she appears at promotional events, thousands show up. The numbers don't lie, and they're not even close. Some people want to frame these comparisons as hate or bias, but that's avoiding reality. If you're a brand considering a marketing partnership, you look at events like Barbie Dreamfest and you see the disconnect between social media metrics and actual turnout. Then you start asking harder questions about whether those follower counts represent real influence. Because influence isn't about online arguments or comment section battles. It's about the ability to move people to action. For Angel Reese personally, this has to be a wake-up call. Not about her basketball career, which is progressing fine and shows real promise, but about understanding the difference between online popularity and genuine marketability. If her management team is booking her for events that turn out like this, they're actively damaging her brand. Every empty venue, every half-filled arena, every failed appearance chips away at the perception that she's a major draw. And in the entertainment and sports world, perception becomes reality very quickly. Once sponsors and partners start seeing you as someone who can't deliver an audience, those opportunities dry up fast. The smart move would be to be much more selective about which events and partnerships to take on. Not every opportunity is worth doing. Sometimes, protecting your reputation means saying no to things that might expose weaknesses rather than highlight strengths. The broader lesson here applies to the entire WNBA. The league has been riding high on increased attention during the 2024 season. Ratings improved at certain venues. There's more media coverage than ever before. Attendance numbers are up in specific markets. But we need to be honest about what's actually driving that growth. It's not evenly distributed across all players and all teams. There are specific drivers, specific stars who are bringing in casual fans and new viewers. When the league and media partners pretend that everyone is contributing equally to that growth, they're setting themselves up for problems down the road. Because corporate sponsors will eventually analyze the real data. They'll compare attendance when different players are featured. They'll track merchandise sales and television ratings and social media engagement that actually translates into purchases. And when they do that analysis, the results are going to be uncomfortable for people who've been pushing narratives that don't match reality. Think about what a similar event would look like with different talent attached. If there was a Caitlin Clark Barbie collaboration event tomorrow, same price point, same type of setup, would it be empty? The honest answer is probably not. It would likely sell out, or at least have respectable attendance that justified the venue and ticket price. That's not speculation or bias. It's based on observable patterns of behavior. Her fans actually show up. They buy tickets to games, even away games. They purchase merchandise in quantities that break sales records. They watch broadcasts in numbers that push ratings higher than the league has seen in years. That's the difference between genuine fan support and online noise. One translates to real-world impact. The other evaporates the moment it requires any actual commitment. The Barbie Dreamfest disaster also reveals something about the nature of modern fandom and online culture. There's a segment of people who are extremely loud on social media, who will defend their chosen athletes or celebrities with incredible ferocity, but who never actually support them in meaningful ways. They'll argue in comment sections for hours. They'll attack anyone who criticizes their favorite. They'll create hashtags and try to manufacture viral moments, but they won't buy a ticket. They won't purchase merchandise. They won't watch games consistently. They're fans of the online battle more than they are fans of the actual person or sport. And the league needs to understand the difference between those two groups, because one of them pays the bills and one of them just creates noise. For the people who actually attended Barbie Dreamfest, this was more than just disappointing. It felt like a betrayal. These were real supporters who were willing to spend significant money for an experience they thought would be worth it. They made travel arrangements, took time off work, invested in something they believed would be special. And what they got was a poorly organized skeleton of an event that looked like it was set up by people who never expected anyone to actually show up. One attendee described walking through the marketplace and counting the vendors, 10 total. She could see all of them from one spot. Another talked about the programming being so sparse and disorganized that she spent most of the day just wandering around wondering if she was missing something. The psychological impact of that kind of letdown is real. Those people are unlikely to trust a similar event in the future. They're going to tell their friends and family about the experience. Word of mouth about disasters spreads faster and farther than word of mouth about successes. The organizational failures suggest that somewhere in the planning process, someone realized this wasn't going to work, but decided to go through with it anyway. Professional event planners know how to create signage and manage programming schedules. Mattel has run countless promotional events over decades. The Barclays Center hosts major functions constantly. For an event backed by those entities to have such basic operational failures points to either massive incompetence or a decision to cut corners because they knew attendance would be low anyway. Either explanation is damning. If it's incompetence, that raises questions about who was actually managing this and why Mattel didn't exercise more oversight. If it's corner cutting based on expected low turnout, that means they knew they were selling tickets to something they hadn't properly invested in. That's worse because it suggests they were comfortable taking people's money for an experience they knew would be subpar. What should happen next? For Angel Reese, the focus needs to be on basketball and being strategic about off-court opportunities. Building a sustainable brand means protecting your reputation and only associating with quality opportunities that reflect well on you. One major disaster like this can be explained away as someone else's failure. Multiple incidents start to look like a pattern. For her management team, this should trigger a serious reassessment of strategy. They need to make sure they're not overextending or putting their client in situations that highlight weaknesses. Sometimes the best career move is turning down opportunities that look good on paper but carry significant risk. For Mattel and the other corporate partners involved, there needs to be accountability about how this was allowed to fail so spectacularly. Someone signed off on this. Someone approved the budget. Someone looked at the planning and gave it a green light. Those decisions need to be examined so the same mistakes don't get repeated. For the WNBA and its media partners, this should be a reminder about the importance of honest marketing. Stop pushing narratives that don't match measurable reality. Stop pretending that all publicity is equal or that every player has the same impact on the league's growth. Acknowledge that certain stars are carrying the expansion right now and build your strategy around that truth. Because if you keep promoting stories that fall apart the moment they meet real-world testing, people stop believing anything you say. Credibility is hard to build and easy to destroy. Every time you hype something that turns out to be empty, you damage the trust that fans and sponsors have in your judgment. The league has real momentum right now. Don't squander it by being dishonest about where that momentum is actually coming from. And for fans, particularly those who spend more time arguing online than actually supporting the league, this should be a moment of reflection. If you claim to be a massive supporter of a player, but you won't spend money on a ticket or show up to an event when you have the chance, what are you actually supporting? Are you a fan of the athlete, or are you a fan of the online arguments? Because the league doesn't need keyboard warriors. It needs people who buy tickets, watch games, and purchase merchandise. It needs fans who will show up in person when opportunities arise. The difference between those two types of engagement is the difference between sustainable growth and a bubble that eventually pops. Social media metrics can be gamed. Television ratings during a unique season can be outliers, but consistent, long-term support from fans who actually invest in the product, that's what determines whether something succeeds or fails. The Barbie Dreamfest disaster is embarrassing for everyone involved, but it's also educational if people are willing to learn the right lessons from it. It's a perfect case study in the difference between online hype and real-world support. It demonstrates why brands need to look beyond follower counts and engagement metrics to understand actual influence. It shows why event organizers need to do proper due diligence about whether promotional partnerships will actually deliver audiences. And it reveals uncomfortable truths about whose name actually draws crowds and whose name just draws online arguments. None of that is about diminishing anyone's accomplishments on the basketball court. Angel Reese is a talented player who won a championship and had a solid rookie season. But talent on the court and marketability off the court are different things. You can be elite at one and struggling with the other. The ultimate question this raises is about authenticity in the age of social media. How much of what we see online represents genuine support and enthusiasm, and how much is manufactured noise? When follower counts can be purchased, when engagement can be coordinated, when bots can inflate every metric, how do you measure real influence? The old-fashioned way still works. You look at who shows up. You count the tickets sold. You measure the merchandise purchased. You track the television ratings when specific players are featured. Those numbers don't lie because they represent actual behavior, actual choices that people make with their time and money. Everything else is just noise that sounds impressive until you test it against reality. And when you do test it, the results can be devastating. Here's the final thought. If this event had featured different talent, would the outcome have been different? If the headliner was someone who consistently sells out arenas and drives measurable fan engagement, would the Barclays Center have been empty? Or would it have been packed with people eager to attend? The answer to that question tells you everything you need to know about the gap between perception and reality in the current WNBA landscape. This isn't about hate or bias or unfair comparisons. It's about acknowledging measurable facts. And the fact is that social media popularity doesn't always translate to real-world influence. Sometimes it's just an illusion that collapses the moment it faces any actual test. Barbie Dreamfest was that test, and the results weren't even close. The only question now is whether the people involved will be honest about what those results mean, or whether they'll keep pretending that online metrics matter more than empty venues and disappointed fans who actually showed up. Stay locked with my channel, Simply Explained, for more up-to-date